Hello everybody, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel where we discuss all things horror and horror related, and today we are talking about Firestarter. So Firestarter is about a young girl named Charlie and her family who all have certain supernatural powers and abilities. Over the course of the film, you discover that Charlie's parents were part of some secret government scientific experiments when they were in college. And during these experiments, they were injected with a certain serum that gave them abilities such as telekinesis or mind control. And they have passed down these powers to Charlie, who has also developed her own powers, most notably the ability to start fires with her mind. As Charlie is getting older, her power to start fire is beginning to get a lot stronger, and she has a hard time controlling it. So anytime she gets upset, things get set ablaze, which causes significant problems for Charlie and her family, who are actually in hiding from these government scientists that try to do experiments on them. And of course, the government officials find out about Charlie and her powers and where her and her family have been hiding, and they go after her, and then the rest of the film is Charlie and her father on the run from these people and trying to get away from them. So I'll just say off the bat here, I haven't read the Stephen King novel that this movie is based off of, and I only saw the original film a couple of days ago, actually. It was always a film that I obviously knew of, but for some reason just never saw. When my mom took me to the video store as a kid and we would rent horror movies, this was never one that she recommended, and after watching it, I can see why. As far as Stephen King adaptations go, the original is not a bad film, it's just really boring. It's almost 2 hours long, and I just felt like the story really dragged out, and there wasn't a lot of character development or really anything interesting happening with the characters to make it an enjoyable film. There was really nothing scary happening in the original, and to be honest, there's really nothing scary happening in this new version either. So I went into this movie with very low expectations, and it was pretty on par with what I was expecting. This new version of Firestarter is a very C-tier horror film. Technically speaking, it's well made, and they do deviate from the original, which I was happy to see, and they do try to throw in some new ideas in here and there. Overall, much like the original, this new version just feels bland. There's just not a lot happening with the characters or the story. One thing that this new film has over the original film is the score. The music for the new Firestarter was composed by John and Carpenter, who of course has composed the music for other Blumhouse films, most notably Halloween and Halloween Kills. And the score is fantastic. There's a lot of that classic Carpenter synth music throughout. I'll be honest, I did not go out and buy a ticket to see this in the theaters. I streamed it on Peacock, but I did purchase the soundtrack because I love John and Cody's work. As for other things I liked about this new version, I did enjoy that we got some scenes with Charlie and her family. In the original film, there's only really 1 or 2 scenes with her and her mom and dad. You only get a brief glimpse of their home life, and to be honest, it was these scenes with the family that I found to be some of the most interesting scenes from the original. While watching the original film, I kept hoping that there were going to be more scenes and flashbacks with Charlie and her family, because I was interested in seeing their family dynamic and how do they operate, having a daughter with these crazy powers and they themselves have powers, and how do they get by. But the original film didn't really get into that. In this new version, there are a few scenes. It starts off, I would say the first act is really Charlie and her family. And so I did appreciate seeing their dynamics, what they do for work, how they protect themselves while they're in hiding. And I do appreciate that this film gives us a little bit more of the day in the life of Charlie, right? It shows her going to school and interacting with her classmates. In the original film, I found Drew Barrymore's Charlie to just be really annoying. And I think part of the reason for that is that the character just was not well developed in the original film. Her entire role in the original film was to just kind of run around and scream and get angry, and you just didn't really get much of the character's psychology. So I appreciated that the new version tried to give us a little bit more of what's going on in Charlie's mind. A lot of it feels very similar to Carrie. There's even that whole scene of her in gym and everyone's throwing balls and playing, and the bullies throw balls at her head and make fun of her. But overall, I found the Charlie in the new version a lot better than the original. I thought the actress did a good job with what she was given. She does kill a cat in one scene though, which honestly made me like her kind of less. So there's this thing that I learned when I was studying screenwriting, and it's something that I actually still teach my students today. And it's just this little trick that as a writer you can use to get the audience to either sympathize with your character or at least connect with them on some level. And that's showing them being kind to animals. And this works for your hero, anti-heroes, villains, like just having a scene, a very simple scene where a character is shown being nice to an animal or having a pet. We're more likely to sympathize with a character if we see them being nice to animals. And you can actually see this in a lot of films and TV shows. Next time you watch something, be on the lookout because it's there. So to have Charlie in this film set a cat on fire, and then I have to get a shot of this cat half burned and withering on the ground in pain, like, that doesn't make me like Charlie. I also enjoyed Zac Efron in this movie. I thought he did a fairly good job playing the dad character. Again, like most of the characters, the writing didn't give him that much to do, but he did a really good job with what he was given. And I liked that they toned down the powers of the father. In the original version, anytime the dad uses his mind control technique, he's like grabbing his head and it looks very kind of cartoonish and over the top. In this version, it's a lot more subtle and a lot more creepier as well. He has blood like coming out of his eyes. So I appreciated what they did with the father character as well. So there are definitely a few things that this new version did better than the original film. That being said, again, the story just feels really bland and the characters feel bland. And what's odd is that this film is only 90 minutes, so it's about 30 minutes shorter than the original version. Like, the old version was just way too slow and just meandering around, and then this new version went by way too quickly. Somehow both versions just failed at telling a complete, concrete story. So I don't know what the happy medium is for Firestarter. This new version might have benefited from taking some of the slower parts of the original film. There are scenes in the original where you do have the antagonists of the film kind of discussing their motives and what their plans are for Charlie. One of the weakest links in this film for me was the antagonist, Captain Hollister. And again, they just don't give her that much to do. She just kind of comes in and is like, yeah, I'm a bad bitch. Look, as far as representation goes, it's not enough to just put a woman in a role like this. You actually have to give her character motivations and development, but she has none of that. She's just a very bland character. I don't know why she wants to get Charlie so bad. I don't know what she wants to use her for. She's just kind of this two-dimensional evil government character. At least in the original film, you had George C. Scott and Martin Sheen just hamming it up for the camera, and that was entertaining. So yeah, the antagonist isn't that interesting, and then the showdown with her and Charlie at the end is incredibly anticlimactic. And I really did not like the way this film ended. It ended in a way that was so unrealistic to me. Spoilers if you haven't seen the film yet. The ending involves Charlie and this other character, John Raybird. Raybird is the other antagonist of the film. You find out that he's also been a part of these government experiments. He has powers of his own, and he's been used as a weapon to go and capture people for the government or kill them. And so he's the one that goes after Charlie and her family. He kills her mother right in front of her and then forces her and her father to go on the run. Yet, despite all of this, by the ending, Charlie has the opportunity to set him ablaze, and she doesn't. She just kind of walks away. And then at the very end, it shows her by herself, and this John Raybird character comes out, and they have like this kinship moment, right? He holds out his hand to her, and she takes it, and then they just kind of go off into the night together. And it's like, why? Why would she go with this guy that she saw kill her mom. So I'm not buying that she would just forgive and forget that easily and just go walking off with him. You know, it's not enough to just be like, oh, we have these powers and we both have been screwed over by the government. Like, no, like he caused the death of her family and she's just like, okay, well, I forgive you. Let's, you know, go off somewhere. So this is one of those moments where I feel like if they had brought in some of what was in the original film, because in the original film, you have George C. Scott, who is playing this Rainbird character. And a big plot point of the original film is that George C. Scott's Raybird, he wants to get close to Charlie because he wants to eventually kill her. But leading up to that, you have scenes of them together where he's pretending to bond with her. They have these genuine moments together and he manages to get her trust. So maybe if this new version had something like that where he wasn't pretending to be nice to Charlie, like they actually did have some kind of bonding moment together, maybe I could have bought the ending. But again, he did kill her family. So I don't know, that part to me felt way out of left field and just did not fit with the rest of the story. I really did not like the ending of this film. So overall, I feel pretty indifferent about this film. Very much like the original, it's not the worst Stephen King adaptation that's out there, but it is pretty bland. It's not going to give you a lot. So if you are interested in seeing it, I would recommend just streaming it on Peacock. It's available now. So those are my thoughts on the new Firestarter. Have you seen the film? If you did, what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for watching.